you've ever walked in the office on particular days or been a part of or heard hearsay in our staff meetings, you will know that I struggle with sermon titles. They are not as easy as they seem when you first put them out on when you see them in a bulletin. It is usually Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday morning before we read the bulletin. Sean will ask, "Do you have a sermon title yet?" No, just kind of. So I thought about titling this sermon, Three Saviors and a Neurotic. But I didn't know how well that would go over. Maybe it would go over better than I thought. In Jewish teaching, Moses and Elijah are called the two saviors. Moses saved the Israelites from their time in Egypt. And Elijah will come back and save the people when he returns back as a forerunner to Messiah, the Messiah coming in. So Moses and Elijah are known as the two saviors. Elijah, never did die. He was caught up in into the heavens in this flaming wheel and was just carried away after he appointed Elisha as the next prophet over Israel. And then there's Jesus as the third person in that little circle that's there. Off to the side is Peter and James and James's brother John. Now, James and John don't have a whole lot to say in this story. They're just kind of there as part of the picture, and maybe to balance the three and the three together, so there was some literary balance and all of that. But James and John are just kind of off to the side. We don't get a sense of really how they reacted, except for the fear part. And Jesus walks up to them as well as to Peter and touches them. But Peter's the neurotic in this sermon title. Peter reminds me of the character of George Costanza on the TV show Seinfeld. Remember George? He was always wanting to get an angle on life, always has a gimmick going of some sort, and that gimmick usually doesn't work out. George famously once said, "Every instinct I have in every aspect of life, it's all been wrong." That's the image I have of Peter here in Matthew. I have questions about this story. What were they talking about? What was Moses and Elijah talking about with Jesus when that light enveloped him? Maybe they were commenting on how brilliant Jesus' robe was. Dazzling white. How did you get your robe so dazzling white, Jesus? How's it going since the incarnation so long ago? James and John might have been over to the side, and they might have been remarking about how good those folks look so many hundreds of years, thousands of years later. And after the initial shock of seeing the fathers of the faith, what's Peter's response, and what's he going to do? A good gentleman might offer sweet tea and Krispy Kreme donuts. Might be something that he gives. There was no fear in their life, though. There was no wonder. There was no mystery at first. Peter was probably doing what he was taught, to be hospitable. I'll fix you 3 booths, 3 places where you can stay, 3 places where you can come out from the hot sun of the day, of the threatening darkness, and be comfortable. That was what he was taught. What he got was an experience of God. You might know that I'm a bit of a data geek. I like data. I like to look at data and in my own way analyze data. It drives a couple people nuts, I know, when I ask questions about this, but it tells us a lot about who we are. And the data that we have, whether it's financial data or whether it's people data, It tells us who we are. I read a story a couple years ago looking at all kinds of different data stuff points that said that 72% of United Methodists in Maryland, Northern Virginia, and the District of Columbia do not expect to experience God in worship. 72%. Whether they actually do experience God in worship or don't experience God isn't known, but whether they expect to experience God in worship, that expectation is pretty low. The expectation of having a little transfiguration moment in Sunday worship as the community of faith comes together. I couldn't find any data on Maryland, D.C., and Northern Virginia Presbyterians. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think? When you come to worship on Sunday mornings, do you expect to experience this transformative God in our midst? I hope you come with an expectation of experiencing God. Maybe not in a cloud that envelops us like the rain outside of these windows this morning, or maybe not in a James Earl Jones-like voice booming out of the audio system that says, listen. But it could be in a hymn or a worship song, maybe in a praise song, or maybe in the silence during the prayers, maybe in the liturgy. The work is what that word means, the liturgy of the church, perhaps in the sermon. But God shows up here in this place. I'm also struck in Matthew's story about how Peter's desire to be hospitable, to build these booths, so our Jewish friends and neighbors have a festival called the Festival of Booths, and it reminds them of an Old Testament story that Peter knew about and carried into this story, and Matthew recorded it. I wonder if in his desire to be hospitable, to make these places of rest, might somehow also be a desire to hold on to the moment. We are an emotional bunch of folks. Human beings are. And we have these emotions that come out, and we want to hold on to those emotions that are high, and we want to hold on to those mountaintop experiences because they so challenged us and so changed us. We want to keep that experience in our hearts, in our lives, but perhaps in doing so, we want to also maybe subconsciously keep God in that box. Right here. Right where I know God can be. I don't want God out running wild and crazy in the world. Who knows what could happen if that ever happened. And I wonder if that's why those United Methodists in Maryland don't expect to experience God. Because we put God in this box. And we like for God to stay in this box, thank you very much, our own little box to open when we have that and need that special feeling. We can go and open it a little bit and close it back up. That special understanding, open it and close it back up. That little nudge, yep, God's there. That'll get me to the next point in my life, that special understanding, that quick answer to a crisis in my life. God, I really need you. Oh, yep, there you are. Okay, now it's done. Thanks a lot. Back into the box. And then when it's over, back up on a shelf until the next time we're in need. We've domesticated God. And by extension, we've domesticated the church of Jesus Christ. At least in our thinking, maybe even in our actions, not believing that we can be the church that God is calling us to be. Not trusting the words that come to us from pulpits and from Bible studies and from wisdom. Not trusting in the God who has called us to this place every Sunday morning, nudged us here. You're not here by accident, remember. Who has given us this place. Not trusting that we can be in the world a force to be reckoned with. But friends, this story reminds us that God refuses to be tamed in such a manner. Before Jesus could even answer Peter, Lord, let me make these three moves. One for you, Moses, and Elijah. Before Jesus could even respond to Peter, God speaks. And speaks in language that they've heard before. Listen up again. They were present. I have to believe that they were present at the Jordan River years before. And then maybe they were in the line waiting for John the Baptist's moment when he dumped them in the Jordan River. If they happened to be in that line, if they were watching John do his thing, then they heard that voice when Jesus walked up and John said, I need to be baptized by you. No, Jesus said, I need to be baptized by you. And there was his voice, listen, this is my son. Listen to him. On this table is a plate and a cup. And on the first Sunday, we celebrate communion at this table. This is my body, Jesus said, broken. This is the cup of redemption that has been given for you, of hope, of thanksgiving, and of freedom. Eat this bread and drink this and know that I am God. Do you expect to experience God's presence in worship? Do you expect to experience that transformative life in your life? I hope so, as you move from this place, as Russ Weekly comes to be your next pastor, that you can carry that expectation every Sunday when he stands in this pulpit. A long time ago, our God wouldn't be kept on a mountain. Our God isn't tamed in sanctuaries today, but is running around wild, creating and redeeming and sustaining a new world, a new kingdom, and is inviting all of us to participate in that. And going forward, you get to be a part of that. As there is newness and hope, as there is joy in your life that I've experienced in my time, as you continue to go forward with that joy in your life and move into the world, you get to be a part of bringing hope and sustaining a new world and bringing about a new kingdom and inviting folks in this community to be a part of that as well here. So it depends on how we live. Will we live like a neurotic George Costanza or a Peter? It's good to be here. Let's box you in right here when we need it. Or will you live like a disciple of Jesus Christ? Transformed in your life because of God's presence here every Sunday. Remember, there's a whole world that was changed because of the movement of Jesus' disciples. A lot when he was alive, and particularly after his resurrection, the world was changed. The choice is yours. For those who ears to hear.